Hey there, you're looking kind of cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out all my other socials. Enjoy. The clock on the wall ticked steadily as Reese sat at his desk, eyes darting between spreadsheets and the time. His fingers flew across the keyboard, inputting numbers with practiced ease. As an accountant, he was used to long hours, but today felt different. An anticipation bubbled beneath his calm exterior, like champagne waiting to be uncorked. At precisely 3:45 p.m., Reese shut down his computer and gathered his things. He nodded a quick goodbye to his coworkers, trying not to seem too eager as he headed for the elevator. The ride down to the parking garage felt interminable, each floor passing with agonizing slowness. Finally reaching his car, Reese slid behind the wheel and took a deep breath. He'd planned this afternoon carefully, knowing Lorelai would be out with friends until late. It was a rare opportunity, one he couldn't pass up. The drive home was a blur of traffic lights and turns, muscle memory taking over as his mind wandered. He parked in the driveway of their modest suburban home, fumbling with his keys in his haste to get inside. Once in the safety of the empty house, Reese allowed himself to relax. He loosened his tie and kicked off his shoes, padding barefoot up the stairs to the bedroom. His heart raced as he approached the closet, fingers trembling slightly as he reached for the back corner. There, hidden behind winter coats and boxes of old tax returns, was a plain brown package. Reese pulled it out reverently, setting it on the bed. He'd ordered it weeks ago, but hadn't found the courage to open it until now. With careful movements, he unsealed the package and reached inside. His breath caught as his fingers brushed soft fabric. Slowly, he withdrew a deep burgundy skirt, the material flowing like water through his hands. Reese held it up to the light, admiring the way it shimmered. It was beautiful, more than he'd dared hope for when he'd clicked purchase late one night. He'd agonized over the size, worried it wouldn't fit, but now... Without allowing himself to overthink, Reese began to undress. He hung his suit carefully, not wanting to arouse suspicion later. Standing in just his underwear, he took another deep breath before stepping into the skirt. The fabric whispered against his skin as he pulled it up, settling it at his waist. His hands shook slightly as he fastened the zipper, smoothing the material over his hips. Turning to face the full-length mirror on the closet door, Reese gasped softly. The skirt fit perfectly, falling just below his knees in elegant pleats. It emphasized his narrow waist and the subtle curve of his hips. For a moment, Reese simply stared, drinking in the sight of himself. A warmth bloomed in his chest, a feeling of rightness he couldn't quite explain. He twirled experimentally, watching the skirt flare out around him. A giddy laugh escaped his lips, quickly stifled by habit. Emboldened, Reese returned to the closet. He pulled out one of Lorelai's silk blouses, a creamy off-white that complemented the skirt beautifully. It was a little tight across the shoulders, but the overall effect was stunning. He dabbed on a touch of Lorelai's perfume, the floral scent wrapping around him like an embrace. A pair of low heels completed the ensemble. Reese wobbled slightly as he took a few experimental steps, unused to the change in balance. Back at the mirror, he barely recognized himself. Gone was the staid accountant in his pressed suit. In his place stood someone softer, more graceful, someone who looked happy. Reese twirled again, reveling in the swish of fabric around his legs. He struck a few poses, giggling at his own silliness. For the first time in years, he felt truly free. The sound of a key in the lock downstairs shattered the moment. Reese froze, panic surging through him. Lorelai wasn't supposed to be home for hours. He looked wildly around the room, searching for a place to hide or change. "Reese?" Lorelai's voice floated up the stairs. "Are you home early?" Heart pounding, Reese realized he was out of time. He could hear Lorelai's footsteps on the stairs, coming closer with each passing second. Closing his eyes, he braced himself for the inevitable. The bedroom door swung open. "Hey, I forgot my..." Lorelai's words cut off abruptly as she took in the scene before her. Rhys opened his eyes, meeting his wife's shocked gaze in the mirror. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unasked questions. Finally, Lorelai broke the stillness. Rhys?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. What is this?" Rhys turned slowly to face her, his mouth dry. "Lorelai, I can explain." But the words wouldn't come. How could he possibly explain something he barely understood himself? Years of hiding, of shame and secrecy pressed down on him like a physical weight. Lorelai's eyes darted from the skirt to the blouse, then back to Rhys's face. Her expression cycled through confusion, shock, and something that looked terrifyingly like anger. "Is that my blouse?" she demanded, her voice rising. And my perfume? What the hell is going on?" Rhys flinched at her tone. "Please, just let me... Are you having an affair?" Lorelai cut him off, her face flushing. Is this hers?" She gestured at the skirt, her hand shaking. "No!" Rhys exclaimed, horrified. "God, no, Lorelai. I would never..." "Then explain this to me." Lorelai's voice cracked. "Because I'm having a real hard time understanding what I'm seeing right now." Rhys took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. "It's mine," he said quietly. "The skirt. I bought it online a few weeks ago." Lorelai stared at him, uncomprehending. "You bought it? For yourself?" Rhys nodded, unable to meet her eyes. "I've wanted to try it for a long time. I never had the courage before." "Try what exactly?" Lorelai's voice had an edge to it now. "Dressing up in women's clothes?" Another nod. Rhys felt tears pricking at the corners of his eyes. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I never meant for you to find out like this." Lorelai sank down onto the edge of the bed, her legs seeming to give out beneath her. "How long?" she asked, her voice hollow. "How long have you been doing this?" Rhys hesitated. I've thought about it for years, but this is the first time I've actually done it." A bitter laugh escaped Lorelai's lips. "Years? We've been married for 10 years, Rhys. Were you ever going to tell me?" The hurt in her voice was like a knife to Rhys's heart. "I wanted to," he said desperately. "So many times, but I was afraid. Afraid of how you'd react, afraid of losing you." "So you lied to me instead?" Lorelai's eyes flashed with anger. "Kept this huge secret?" Rhys flinched. "I never meant to hurt you, Lorelai. I love you. I didn't know how to tell you." Lorelai stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room, her hands clenched and unclenched at her sides. "I don't even know who you are right now," she said, her voice trembling. "The man I married, I thought I knew everything about him." "I'm still me," Rhys pleaded. "This doesn't change who I am inside. It's just a part of me I've kept hidden." Lorelai whirled to face him. "A pretty big part, don't you think?" "God, Rhys, do you have any idea how this feels? To come home and find my husband dressed like a woman?" Rhys finished quietly. Lorelai nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I don't understand. Are you gay? Do you want to be a woman?" Rhys shook his head. "No, it's not like that. I'm attracted to women. To you, sometimes I feel more comfortable like this." He gestured helplessly at his outfit. "Comfortable?" Lorelai repeated incredulously. "How can you possibly be comfortable lying to your wife?" The words hit Rhys like a physical blow. He sank down onto the bed, burying his face in his hands. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." For a long moment, the only sound in the room was Lorelai's ragged breathing. Rhys waited, heart pounding, for her next words. Would this be it? The end of their marriage? Finally, Lorelai spoke. Her voice was quiet, controlled. I think I need some time to process this." Rhys looked up, hope and fear warring in his chest. "Of course," he said quickly. "Whatever you need, Lorelai nodded, not quite meeting his eyes. I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. I can't be here right now. Reese's heart sank, but he nodded. I understand. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. Lorelai turned to leave, then paused at the door. Reese, she said softly. Yes? Please don't wear my clothes anymore, not until we figure this out. With that, she was gone. Reese listened to her footsteps retreating down the stairs, then the sound of the front door closing. The silence that followed was deafening. Slowly, mechanically, Reese began to undress. He hung the blouse back in Lorelai's closet, carefully smoothing out any wrinkles. The skirt he folded neatly, tucking it away in the back of his own drawer. Standing Amal in the middle of the bedroom in just his underwear, Reese felt more exposed than he ever had before. The freedom he'd felt earlier had evaporated, leaving behind a cold, empty feeling in the pit of his stomach. He pulled on a pair of sweatpants and an old t-shirt, then sank down onto the bed. The sheets still held Lorelai's scent, and Reese found himself clutching her pillow to his chest as the tears finally came. Hours passed. Reese barely moved, lost in a haze of regret and fear. The sun set, casting long shadows across the room. Still, he sat, replaying the confrontation with Lorelai over and over in his mind. It was well past midnight when his phone buzzed with a text. Reese fumbled for it, heart leaping when he saw Lorelai's name on the screen. I think we should see a therapist, the message read. Together, if you're willing. Reese's fingers shook as he typed out his reply. Yes, anything. I love you. The response came quickly. I love you too. We'll get through this. For the first time since Lorelai had left, Reese felt a glimmer of hope. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The next few weeks were a blur of therapist appointments and long, emotional conversations. Reese and Lorelai met with a couples counselor specializing in gender identity issues. Dr. Amelia Chen, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, created a safe space for them to explore their feelings. In their first session, Reese struggled to articulate his desires. I don't want to be a woman all the time, he explained haltingly. But sometimes I feel more like myself in feminine clothing. It's hard to explain. Dr. Chen nodded encouragingly. Many people experience gender as a spectrum rather than a binary. It's okay to explore different expressions of yourself. Lorelai, sitting stiffly beside Reese on the couch, spoke up. I just don't understand why he kept it from me for so long. Don't I deserve to know who I'm married to? Of course you do, Dr. Chen agreed. Reese, can you explain why you felt you couldn't share this part of yourself with Lorelai? Reese took a deep breath. I was scared, he admitted. Scared of losing her, of being judged. I've always felt different, like there was something wrong with me for wanting this. I didn't want Lorelai to think less of me. Lorelai's expression softened slightly. I would never think less of you for being yourself, Reese. I just wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me. As the sessions progressed, Reese began to open up more about his feelings. He described the sense of peace he felt when wearing feminine clothing, the way it allowed him to express a softer side of himself. It's not about becoming a different person, he explained. It's about letting all parts of myself exist together. Lorelai listened, asking questions, and slowly coming to understand. It wasn't easy. There were still moments of frustration and hurt on both sides, but gradually the tension between them began to ease. One evening, about a month into their therapy, Lorelai approached Reese as he sat reading in the living room. She held out a small wrapped package. What's this? Reese asked, surprised. Lorelai smiled hesitantly. Open it and see. With trembling fingers, Reese unwrapped the gift. Inside was a delicate silk scarf in shades of blue and green. He looked up at Lorelai, eyes wide. I thought maybe you'd like to try wearing it, she said softly. If you want to. Reese felt tears welling up. Are you sure? Lorelai nodded, sitting down beside him. I'm still getting used to all of this, she admitted. But I want you to be happy, Reese, to be yourself. And if this is part of who you are, then I want to support you. Reese pulled her into a tight hug, burying his face in her hair. "Thank you," he whispered. "I love you so much." It was a turning point in their relationship. Slowly, cautiously, Reese began to explore his feminine side more openly. He started small, painting his nails, wearing the scarf Lorelai had given him. Each time he'd glance nervously at his wife, searching for signs of discomfort or disgust. But Lorelai surprised him. She offered tentative compliments, even helping him choose colors that suited his skin tone. It wasn't always easy for her, Reese knew. But the fact that she was trying meant everything. As the months passed, Reese grew more confident. He began experimenting with makeup, learning through online tutorials, and plenty of trial and error. Lorelai even sat with him one evening, laughing as they both attempted to master the perfect winged eyeliner. "You're better at this than I am," she teased, surveying Reese's somewhat wobbly but passable attempt. Reese grinned, a warmth spreading through his chest. These moments of normalcy, of shared laughter, were precious to him. It was during one of their therapy sessions that the topic of names came up. Dr. Chen had asked Reese if he'd ever considered using a different name when presenting more femininely. Reese hesitated, glancing at Lorelai. I've thought about it, he admitted, but I wasn't sure how to bring it up. Lorelai reached out, taking his hand. "What name were you thinking of?" "Martha," Reese said softly. "I've always liked the name Martha." Dr. Chen smiled encouragingly. "That's a lovely name. Lorelai, how do you feel about Reese using Martha when presenting femininely?" Lorelai was quiet for a moment, considering. "It might take some getting used to," she said finally. "But if it's important to you, Martha, then I'm willing to try." Reese, now Martha, felt a surge of emotion. "Thank you," she whispered, squeezing Lorelai's hand. From that day forward, Martha became a more frequent presence in their home. She'd emerge on weekends or quiet evenings, dressed in flowing skirts and soft blouses. Lorelai helped her build a wardrobe, offering advice on styles and fits. There were still challenges, of course. Martha struggled with internalized shame, years of hiding not easily overcome. Lorelai had moments of doubt, wondering what this meant for their future. But through it all, their love for each other remained constant. They communicated openly, sharing fears and hopes alike. Slowly but surely, they were building a new understanding of their relationship. 1 year after that fateful afternoon, when Lorelai had discovered Reese in a skirt, they decided to celebrate. Martha spent the day getting ready, taking extra care with her appearance. She chose an elegant black dress, pairing it with the scarf Lorelai had given her all those months ago. Lorelai, dressed in a deep green pantsuit, gasped softly when Martha descended the stairs. "You look beautiful," she said, her eyes shining. Martha blushed, still unused to such open admiration. "So do you," she replied, leaning in to kiss her wife's cheek. They went to a small, intimate restaurant, one where they felt comfortable being themselves. As they settled into their seats, Lorelai reached across the table to take Martha's hand. "I'm so proud of you," she said softly, "of how far we've come." Martha felt tears pricking at her eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "Your love and support mean everything to me." They talked and laughed over dinner, reminiscing about the past year and all they'd overcome. As the waiter brought their dessert, a decadent chocolate cake to share, Lorelai raised her glass in a toast. "To us," she said simply, "to love, acceptance, and new beginnings." Martha clinked her glass against Lorelai's, her heart full. "To us," she echoed. As they left the restaurant, hand in hand, Martha felt a sense of peace settle over her. The journey hadn't been easy, and there would undoubtedly be more challenges ahead. But with Lorelai by her side, she knew she could face anything. They were no longer just husband and wife, but partners in the truest sense of the word. Together, they had redefined their relationship, creating a space where both Reese and Martha could exist and thrive. As they drove home, the city lights twinkling around them, Martha glanced at Lorelai. Her wife's profile was illuminated by the passing streetlights, beautiful and strong. Martha felt a surge of love and gratitude. "Thank you," she said softly. Lorelai turned, raising an eyebrow. "For what?" "For everything. For loving me, all of me. For being willing to go on this journey with me." Lorelai smiled, reaching out to squeeze Martha's hand. "Always," she replied. "We're in this together, remember?" As they pulled into their driveway, Martha felt a sense of coming home. Not just to their house, but to herself. She was Reese, the accountant who loved spreadsheets and bad puns. She was Martha, who delighted in silky fabrics and the perfect shade of lipstick. And she was loved, wholly and completely, by the amazing woman beside her, walking up to their front door, hand in hand. Martha knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together. Their love had been tested, stretched to its limits, but it had emerged stronger than ever. As Lorelai unlocked the door, Martha leaned in to kiss her softly. "I love you," she murmured against her wife's lips. Lorelai smiled, her eyes shining in the moonlight. "I love you too, Martha. Always." The soft click of the front door shutting behind them seemed to echo in the quiet house, a gentle punctuation to the night they'd just shared. Martha stood in the entryway, her black dress catching the faint glow of the porch light filtering through the window. Lorelai turned from locking the door, her eyes lingering on her wife, her partner, in a way that felt new yet familiar. The air between them buzzed with unspoken words, a current of understanding that had been building over months of hard conversations, tears, and tentative steps forward. Lorelai stepped closer, her green pantsuit rustling faintly as she moved. She reached out, her fingers brushing the silk scarf draped around Martha's neck, the scarf she'd gifted her, a symbol of their fragile but growing acceptance. "You really do look beautiful tonight," she said, her voice low and warm, carrying none of the hesitation it once had. Martha's breath hitched, a flush creeping up her cheeks. "You've said that already," she replied, her tone teasing, but her eyes searching Lorelai's face for confirmation, for that steady reassurance she'd come to rely on. "I mean it every time." Lorelai's hand lingered on the scarf, then slid down to rest lightly on Martha's arm. "I don't think I've ever seen you this relaxed. Happy." Martha smiled, a small, genuine curve of her lips. "I am. Because of you." She stepped closer, closing the distance between them until she could feel the warmth of Lorelai's body, the faint scent of her citrus perfume mingling with the floral notes Martha had borrowed earlier. "I didn't think we'd get here." Lorelai's eyes softened, her hand moving to cup Martha's cheek. "Neither did I," she admitted, "but I'm glad we did." For a moment, they simply stood there, breathing in sync, the weight of the past year settling around them like a blanket. Comforting now, rather than suffocating. Then Lorelai leaned in, her lips brushing Martha's in a kiss that started soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. Martha responded immediately, her hands finding Lorelai's waist, pulling her closer as the kiss deepened. Thanks for watching. The rest won't be viewable on YouTube, so check out Patreon if you want more. I hope you have a wonderful day, my cutie.